When you book a ride through Uber, up to 40% of your fare is taken by the company before drivers receive their share of the money. But a new workers' cooperative in New York City is trying to change how rideshares work. Co-op Ride is a new rideshare app that's unique from Uber and Lyft in several major ways. First, they promise lower fares to riders. And second, the app takes a lower percentage out of drivers' wages and delivers the company's profits back to the drivers as dividends. Most importantly, the company offers a part ownership stake for all drivers that sign up.
The power of these companies comes down to a simple choice people make of like, what button do you push when you open up your phone to get a ride? And well, now you can push a different button, which actually helps your community instead of hurting it.
The stakes are high right now for rideshare drivers in New York City. This year, Lyft, Uber, and other allied gig work companies worked closely with New York State lawmakers on legislation that would allow them to continue classifying their workers as independent contractors, rather than employees. Though worker advocates have stopped this bill for now, it's clear these companies have their eye on New York. And this level of influence is not without precedent. Nationwide, major rideshare companies have spent hundreds of millions of dollars lobbying to maintain the status quo and have won major victories.
In a very sick and twisted way, Uber and Lyft are taking money out of drivers' pockets and then using it to bankroll a nationwide assault on workers' rights.
That's Eric Foreman, a labor organizer and one of the 3 co-founders of Co-op Ride.
My co-founders are Ken Lewis, who is a longtime driver and transportation management professional in New York City, and Alyssa Orlando, who is a ex-Uber manager who came over to our side.
Co-op Ride is organized through a workers' cooperative, a business model that includes major American brands like Land O'Lakes and Ocean Spray.
In traditional companies, the wealth goes to outside investors and the decisions are made by a management that's accountable to those investors. And that leads to constant conflict in the workplace. And that's why workers need to organize unions. In a co-op, the business is owned by the workers themselves. And so they make decisions democratically about how it should be run. This simple but profound difference of ownership changes everything else. Uber and Lyft, their outside investors are represented by a board of directors which hires a management team whose single-minded goal is to squeeze drivers as much as possible and extract as much wealth from them as possible with high commissions, fees, predatory financing deals for vehicles, payday loans, basically every predatory scheme in the capitalist playbook. Uber and Lyft in New York City, there are regulations that force them to pay the minimum wage, so guess what they pay? The minimum wage. With us, we've set our pay rates 10% higher than the minimum wage from the beginning, and if we can go higher, we will. With Uber and Lyft, commissions eat up to 40% of people's paycheck. With the Drivers Cooperative, the cooperative has this sort of break-even fee, which funds the co-op's operations, and if there's a profit that comes out of that at the end of the year, it just goes back to drivers as dividends.
That notion of sharing profits with workers stands as a stark difference to major rideshare apps. If you've taken an Uber or Lyft recently, you may have noticed that prices have been high. A recent study showed that the cost of a ride was 49% higher in April than it was a year ago. Some recent surges have made prices jump 50% or more, but drivers report they are not benefiting from these higher prices.
Yeah, I've been driving for Uber and Lyft for about two and a half years. I don't feel included. I don't feel like I'm a part of the community, like of the decision making that affects us.
When I work for these other apps, it was always a challenge to talk to a real person.
They don't care about the drivers. They care about the money they're making from you. When you work for Uber or Lyft, you are considered as an independent contractor. How independent are you when they are the one determining their life for you? I'm giving my 100% time to Drivers Co-op. Why? Because if you have been trying to start your own business, this is it as a driver. The management are the drivers. The people making the decision are your fellow drivers. The board members are your fellow drivers.
Competing with Silicon Valley and Wall Street-backed behemoths might seem like a daunting challenge, but Co-op Ride already boasts a membership of 2,500 drivers in New York City, and those drivers remain unfazed by the battle ahead.
People might not want to join something like this because they just feel like we're not going to be able to win against the big guy. How would we tackle against Uber? How do we tackle against Lyft?
People say, well, how can you do this? And I have to say, how can you do what? Look around. The transportation in this city has existed for over 100 years, and it's almost always been propelled by the labor of immigrant workers and of working class New Yorkers. So we're not really doing something new. We're doing what working people have always done, which is start businesses to improve their lives.
I'm excited, not nervous. Ownership is everything. If you're gonna be working, you wanna have ownership in something. I just feel like it puts me in the driver's seat.
Co-op Ride has consumers in mind as well. Part of their strategy is to offer riders lower fares.
We'd be very happy for some competition in terms of paying higher wages to drivers. If Uber and Lyft would like to give over ownership of their own companies to their drivers, we would be happy to compete with them on that playing field as well. All that we need for this to be successful is for New Yorkers to make a choice. Instead of using Uber and Lyft to get around, use Co-op Ride. It's as simple as downloading and using an app.